love this. The Jets are trading for Geno? For Geno Smith? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something right now. And anyone who doesn't like this, you don't know ball. Okay, let me tell you. First of all, I want to go all the way back. Go back to the draft where Geno was coming out of West Virginia. First of all, he was supposed to be a first-round pick. He wasn't. Jets got him at the start of the second round of the draft. Okay, that's how that ultimately goes. I was always a Geno Smith fan. In fact, you know the Twitter, Instagram accounts, our guy Fred Siegel, Freezing Cold Takes, everyone knows it. He wrote about my Geno take in his book when I said Geno was going to be a franchise quarterback. Hey, Freddie, still waiting for the retraction because clearly he turned out to be a franchise quarterback. Turned out to be a franchise quarterback with the Seattle Seahawks and did a hell of a job. Last year, when you look at it in Vegas, and we talked about how the Raiders improved, look, that offensive line was a mess. There was no continuity from the GM to the owner to the coach. To, Chip Kelly's calling the plays. Pete Carroll didn't even want him there. You had Pete's kid coaching the offensive line. Geno Smith can play, okay? Geno Smith can absolutely play. So I will always and forever believe the Jets' playoff droughts would have ultimately been broken, and Ryan Fitzpatrick ended up having a great year, Brandon Marshall, 2015, if IK Enemkpali didn't slug Geno Smith in the face. They absolutely would have made the playoffs, and everything would have changed in 2015 if Geno Smith was the Jets quarterback. So how about this? Our guy from the Post, Brian Costello, all over it. Geno Smith, you can go home again. Traded to the Jets. Listen, I thought that Minnesota made a lot of sense. I thought that Indianapolis made a lot of sense. I thought Atlanta made a lot of sense. And I thought the Jets, these are the four teams that I've been saying on my SiriusXM radio show that I thought made a lot of sense when you look at it here for the Geno Smith acquisition. So I really think that when you look at it and analyze this trade, I love this. I mean, this is terrific here. Absolutely terrific. So Geno Smith is going to the Jets. You can go home again. You know what? And I'll tell you something. I was prepared to go nuts if Carson Wentz was the quarterback for this team. Okay? I don't know what year it is. I don't know if this, was 2017 before he ripped up his knee. Carson Wentz, I don't care about Frank Reich. That was a non-starter, a complete and utter non-starter. This is terrific. By the way, Jets are having a great start to the offseason. Jets are having, I will go take a look right now at the back page from the Post today, okay? You start thinking about it, you start looking about it. The New York vets, and this adds to it, right? Look at these dudes, look at these names. The New York Jets and Muji are adding adults in the room. So I feel compelled, it's our first Schein Time show, right? So I think it's important here to kind of go back a little bit, right? And, kind of ultimately resets. I love the Aaron Glenn hire. Absolutely loved it. I thought it would be akin to DeMeco Ryans in Houston, where, former player, great assistant, and I was campaigning for DeMeco to be a head coach for a long time, and he got the job, and he was fantastic. Same with Aaron Glenn in New Orleans and Detroit. And I thought, you go back to your old organization, and you know where the bodies are buried, right? Like, the good, the bad, everything that goes into the mix and into the equation. And honestly, look at these names here. I got to give them credit. And now Glenn, who was awful last year, didn't do anything right, terrible in game, terrible with the press, terrible with the quarterbacks. He's adding adults. Demario Davis, he goes home to the Jets. And he's 37, but he still has a lot of gas left in the tank. They get edge rushers. That's absolutely incredible. And, I love everything that we're seeing. So the official details on the trade, Geno and a 2026 seventh-round pick to the Jets, and the Jets trade a 2026 sixth-round pick to the Vegas Raiders. So here are the official details on the trade. Man, I love this. Absolutely love this. Just a tremendous job by the Jets. And, as it said on the screen, Jets are doing smart things. I'm Ron Burgundy. Let's give credit here where credit is due. How about the Jets getting Geno Smith? I mean, you could have punched me in the face. I was so surprised by that. Joining us right now, live here on Schein Time. He does an unbelievable job covering the Jets for the New York Post. He's our guy, the great Brian Costello. Kaz always knows. And Kaz, here it is. It's our first show, and we have breaking news. And I didn't have this on my bingo card today for Geno Smith to get traded back to the Jets. You could have knocked me over with the feather when this news broke. I mean, or an IKN and Poly punch, depending upon how you want to go about it. I personally love it. Take me through everything here on Geno back to the Jets.
Yeah, well, thank you for that introduction, Adam. I kind of feel like this is like Jimi Hendrix opening up for the Monkees here with following Rick Pitino. But look, I think we've been over it a million times this offseason. The options at quarterback were not appealing for the Jets. There was not a lot of great options out there. There was no slam dunk that you're like, yeah, that's the way they should go. So I think as it started to round about, you looked at Geno Smith and you said, okay, that's probably better than what they can do on the open market with the guys that were scheduled to be free agents. Geno ends up getting traded to the Jets. I think he was going to be released tomorrow, but the Jets wanted to beat that. They were worried somebody else might swoop in after he got cut, so they made the trade today. I think you look at it and you say he's probably the best of a lot of bad options that the Jets had. I don't think anyone's going to look at this and go, oh, the Jets are going to the playoffs right now. He struggled last year in Vegas, but he's not that far removed from some good seasons in Seattle. And I think what happened here is ancient history. I don't think that's part of the equation anymore, Adam. Like, that's so long ago. There's very few people left in the Jets building from when Geno was here the last time. So it's gonna be a fun story. I mean, he's coming back to New York. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I totally agree with you. And look, you talk about bad options. I mean, I did not want Carson Wentz. I know all about Frank Reich. I don't care. Kirk Cousins, to me, see him on TV. I don't want him throwing passes. I mean, this, to me, there's logic attached. And Kaz, I got to give credit where credit is due. I felt like they needed vets on both sides of the ball. I thought the Jets, and we showed the back page of the Post earlier in the show, had a really solid plan yesterday. I liked what they did. Again, I'm not going nuts, and here's the back page. Yep. I'm not picking playoffs here, but I think that the Jets are off to a really smart, calculated start to the offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like, again, they're not going to parade here for this, but the Jets need to be a competent football team in 2026. That feels like a very low bar to put out there, but not if you watch the Jets. Right. That's not a low bar. That is something they could not achieve last year. Aaron Glenn, he needs this to save his job. And I think all eyes are now on 2027. They have been since the day they traded away Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. And they have 3 first-round picks next year. Next year's draft, everyone says, is loaded. That's where they can find maybe finally the quarterback that can be here for 10 to 15 years and get this organization in where we are talking playoffs and Super Bowls and that kind of thing. But they got to get through 2026 first, and they can't be 3-14 again. They can't look like they did in that last month of the 2025 season where it was just they were getting blown out by the Bills' backups. Like, that can't happen. So I think what they did yesterday, Demario Davis, he's a great leader. Yep. Minka Fitzpatrick is going to, he's still a very good football player. He's going to help them as a leader. They add some to the defensive line. They're going to be better defensively now with those guys. And then now they got to focus on offense. And I think Geno, like we said, that's a good option of what they had. Now they got to address guard. They lost Elijah Vera Tucker. They lost John Simpson. They need a second receiver here somewhere, probably in the draft, maybe a trade. And then you're kind of off and rolling. And I think then you're hoping to see a competent football team. Maybe they win 7-8 games, and they draft a quarterback next year.
It's interesting, and you referenced it, and I loved the Aaron Glenn hire, and for last season, I could not have been more wrong. Like, I thought it was going to be equivalent to what D'Amico Ryans was in Houston. Former player, great assistant, knows the good and bad of the organization, right, knows how to come back, and it was a complete and utter fiasco. So you say competent team, wins 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is. I mean, do we enter this season, Kaz, and Aaron Glenn is on the hot seat?
Yeah, I think so. I don't see how he can't be after 3 wins. I think you have to be on the hot seat. That being said, I think the realistic thing is if he wins 6 or 7 games, he's back. That's not always the case when you're on the hot seat. I don't think this is a case of he has to go to the playoffs to keep his job. Again, I think Woody Johnson is going to be looking for signs that he's the right guy. He can field a competent team, and they won't look like they looked like in his first season.
Kaz, you're the best. I mean, honestly, this is what you live for. Debut of Schein time, and we have our guy, Brian Costello, the best in the business, the first post writer, whether it's California or New York, on our show.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't draw it up any better. So we're going to put that down in the history books. We have that written on the cards. We're going to retire it here in the studio. So congrats, Kaz, and as always, appreciate it.